The message came through space like a cry in the dark. It traveled faster than light, jumping from one quantum relay to another across 40 light-years. When it reached the Galactic Council's monitoring station, the duty officer almost ignored it. Messages from unknown species came in every day. Most were just curious hellos or trade requests. But this one was different. This one screamed with desperation. "Please, anyone who can hear this," the voice said in the universal trade language. "My name is Silas the Lightbringer. I speak for the Villani people of Thessia Prime. We are dying. Our world is being eaten alive. We have never known war, never built weapons, never hurt another living thing. But now death comes from the sky, and we cannot stop it." The message played recordings of the attack. Massive ships shaped like twisted insects hung in orbit around a green world. Smaller craft swarmed down like angry wasps, leaving brown scars. Where forests once grew, cities that had stood for thousands of years crumbled to dust in hours. "The Krathen horde has come to our world," Silas continued, her voice breaking. "They consume everything. Our plants, our animals, even our people. We number 2 billion souls, but each day we are fewer. We have tried to reason with them, tried to offer them what they want, but they do not speak. They only eat." The recording showed the attackers. 3-meter-tall creatures with hard black shells and razor claws. They moved in perfect coordination, like parts of one giant mind. Where they passed, nothing remained but bare dirt. "We offer everything we have to any species that can help us," Silas pleaded. "All our knowledge of growing food, all our understanding of life itself. We will serve any who can teach us to fight, or better yet, who will fight for us. Please, we do not want to die." The message ended with coordinates and repeated itself in 20 different languages. Within hours, copies reached every major government in the galaxy. The responses came back just as quickly. The Altarian Republic sent polite regrets. "While we sympathize with your situation, our forces are committed to border security." The Centauri Federation was more direct. "Thessia Prime lies outside our sphere of influence. We suggest seeking diplomatic solutions." The Vegan Collective offered thoughts and prayers. Perhaps if the Villani demonstrated proper respect for Krathen, territorial claims, a peaceful resolution could be found. One by one, the galaxy's great powers found reasons to look away. Too far, too dangerous, too expensive. Not our problem. But on a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, things were different. Captain Kim Dae-ho stood in the bridge of the UES Indomitable, reading the Villani message for the 5th time. The ship hung in Earth orbit, fresh from its shakedown cruise. It was humanity's first real deep space warship, built after joining the galactic community 3 years ago. "Sir, we're getting a priority signal from Earth Command," said Communications Officer Choi Hae-jin. She was young for her rank, but her skill with alien languages had earned her the position. "Put it through," Kim said. Admiral Yang Soo-bin appeared on the main screen. Behind her, the flags of Earth's United Nations hung in the Geneva Command Center. "Captain Kim, I assume you've seen the Villani distress call," she said without preamble. "Yes, ma'am. Along with all the responses from our galactic neighbors." Yang's face was grim. "Cowards, the lot of them. 2 billion innocent people are about to die, and they're worried about their profit margins. What are our orders, Admiral?" "That's what I'm calling about. The United Earth Council just finished an emergency session. The vote was close, but the decision is made." She paused. "You're to proceed to Thessia Prime immediately. Full combat readiness." Kim felt his pulse quicken. "Ma'am, with respect, we're one ship. The Krathen fleet has over 50 vessels." "I know the odds, Captain, but someone has to answer their call. Might as well be us." The door to the bridge slid open and Dr. Park Min-ji entered. She was the ship's chief medical officer, but her real expertise was in xenobiology. She had been studying everything they knew about both species. "Admiral," she interrupted, "I've been analyzing the data. The Villani are basically living plants with consciousness. They've never experienced violence in their entire evolutionary history. They don't even have words for murder or war." "And the Krathen?" Yang asked. Nightmares, Minji said simply. They're like army ants the size of bears, but with technology. They strip entire ecosystems bare, process everything into nutrients, then lay eggs and move on. They've done this to 47 worlds in the last century. Yang nodded grimly. All the more reason to stop them. Ma'am, Kim said carefully. The other species have armies. They have fleets 10 times larger than ours. If they won't help, Captain. Yang's voice was steel. When has humanity ever walked away from someone asking for help? The bridge fell. Silent. Everyone knew the answer. From the smallest rescue mission to the largest humanitarian crisis, humans had always been the ones to step forward when others stepped back. Besides, Yang continued, we have advantages they don't. We come from a death world. We've been fighting for survival since we lived in caves. The galaxy is full of species that evolved on peaceful worlds. They've never had to deal with predators, natural disasters, or resource scarcity. They don't understand war the way we do. Li Taewu, the chief engineer, spoke up from his station. Admiral, our weapon systems are still experimental. We've never tested them in real combat. Then it's time to find out if they work, Yang replied. Captain Kim, you have 200 volunteers aboard that ship. Each one signed up knowing they might die to protect strangers. Don't let their sacrifice be meaningless. Kim straightened. Understood, Admiral. When do we leave? As soon as you can get clearance from traffic control. The Villani don't have much time. The connection ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Well, said Choi Hyejin. This should be interesting. Kim activated the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. By now you've all heard about the situation on Thessia Prime. In 1 hour we will depart Earth for our first combat mission. I won't lie to you, the odds are bad. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and heading into unknown territory. He paused, looking around the bridge at the faces of his crew. But here's what I know. Somewhere out there 2 billion people are dying. They asked for help and everyone else said no. Everyone except us. The ship's intercom crackled with the sound of 200 people listening. We didn't join Starfleet to be safe, Kim continued, using the nickname the crew had given their service. We joined to explore, to protect, and to prove that humanity belongs among the stars. Today we get to do all three. The response came from all over the ship. Cheers, shouts of agreement, and the sound of people getting ready for war. Set course for Thessia Prime, Kim ordered. Maximum speed. The Indomitable turned away from Earth's blue skies and dove into the black ocean of space. Behind them, their home world grew small and distant. Ahead lay the unknown. In the depths of the ship, Marine Colonel Jang Kyung-ho was addressing his troops. 200 of Earth's finest soldiers, drawn from every nation and military tradition. Listen up, he said in his parade ground voice. We're going to war against something that's never been beaten. Something that's consumed 47 worlds and billions of lives. The galaxy's great powers are too scared to face them. He smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Lucky for the Villani, we're not the galaxy's great powers, we're just humans. And humans have been killing things that wanted to eat us since before we discovered fire. The Marines roared their approval. 6 hours later, the Indomitable vanished into hyperspace, carrying Earth's answer to the stars. Not today. Not on our watch. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant when humans said they would help. The journey to Thessia Prime took 6 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, the crew of the Indomitable prepared for something no human had ever faced. War against aliens. Dr. Park Min-ji spent her days in the medical bay, studying every piece of information about the Villani and their attackers. What she learned made her stomach turn. The Villani are beautiful, she told Captain Kim during one of their daily briefings. Look at this. She showed him recordings from before the attack. The Villani looked like walking flowers made of crystal and light. They were tall and graceful, with translucent skin that glowed softly in sunlight. Their cities were grown rather than built, with buildings that looked like giant trees and bridges made of living vines. They don't eat food like we do, Minji explained. They absorb sunlight and nutrients from the soil through their feet. They've never killed anything, not even for food. Their entire civilization is based on growing things and making them better. Kim watched a recording of Villani children playing in what looked like a garden paradise. And the Krathen? Minji's expression darkened. She switched to different footage, captured by the Villani before their communication systems failed. The Krathen looked like insects from a nightmare. They stood 3 meters tall on powerful legs with forearms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were triangular, dominated by compound eyes that could see in all directions. They're not really individuals, Minji said. They share a group mind, like ants or bees. But instead of building hives, they consume everything they find. Watch this. The recording showed Krathen workers stripping a forest bare in minutes. They cut down trees, processed them in their stomachs, and regurgitated a protein paste that others carried away. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was left behind. How fast do they reproduce? Kim asked. That's the terrifying part. A single queen can lay 10,000 eggs per day. Those eggs hatch in 72 hours. The young are ready to fight within a week. Kim rubbed his temples. So every day we delay, there are thousands more of them. Exactly. And they're not stupid. Look at this. The recording showed Krathen warriors using weapons and tactics. They had energy rifles that could melt through metal. They coordinated their attacks with perfect timing. They even used formations that adapted to their enemies' responses. They've conquered 47 worlds, Captain. Each time, they learned something new about warfare. They're not just bugs. They're bugs that have been trained by 47 different civilizations. In another part of the ship, Colonel Jung Kyung-ho was running his Marines through combat drills. But these weren't ordinary exercises. They were practicing for fights that had never happened before. Remember, he shouted, as his troops moved through a mock battle. Everything we know about human combat applies here. The enemy is bigger and stronger than you, so don't try to match them strength for strength. Be faster, be smarter, be meaner. Sergeant Bae Sun-ho, a demolitions expert, raised his hand. Sir, what if their armor is too thick for our weapons? Then we don't shoot at their armor. Jang replied. We shoot at their eyes, their joints, anything soft. And if that doesn't work, we get creative. Song Yu-ri, the tactical analyst, was studying Krathen combat footage with growing excitement. Colonel, look at this. They fight like a computer program. Same formation, same responses every time. What does that tell you, Lieutenant? That they're predictable, sir. Once we figure out their pattern, we can plan around it. Jang smiled. Exactly. They've been winning because they're fighting people who think like them. But we don't think like anyone else in the galaxy. Nam Jin-woo, the psychological warfare specialist, was working on a different problem. Sir, how do you scare something that doesn't feel fear? Who says they don't feel fear? Jang asked. Just because they're bugs doesn't mean they can't panic. Find a way to make them panic, specialist. I don't care how crazy it sounds. In the engineering section, Lee Tae-woo was modifying every weapon on the ship. The Indomitable had been built with standard galactic weapons, energy beams designed for ship-to-ship combat. But humans had other ideas about warfare. We're adding projectile weapons, he explained to his team. Bullets, rockets, grenades. The galaxy thinks kinetic weapons are primitive, but they have advantages. Energy weapons don't. His assistant, Lim Dong-hyun, looked confused. Like what? They're unpredictable. Every species in the galaxy uses energy weapons that behave the same way. But a bullet can ricochet, fragment, or punch through armor in ways energy can't. Plus, they're mechanical. No circuits to jam, no power cells to drain. They were also modifying the ship's manufacturing systems to produce weapons that would have horrified most galactic civilizations. Chemical explosives, fragmentation grenades, incendiary rounds designed to start fires. Won't the other species think we're barbaric? Dong-hyun asked. Let them, Tae-woo replied. While they're thinking about how barbaric we are, we'll be winning. Communications. Officer Choi Hee-jin spent her time trying to contact the Villani. It wasn't easy. The Krathen were jamming most frequencies, and the few messages that got through painted a grim picture. Captain, she reported during a briefing, I made contact with the Villani shelter yesterday. They're down to 48 million survivors. The number hit the room like a physical blow. In 6 weeks, the Krathon had killed over 1.9 billion people. How much time do we have? Kim asked. At their current rate of consumption, maybe 2 weeks before there's nothing left to save. Medical Officer Park Minji had been working on another problem. Captain, I've been studying human diseases and bacteria. Some of our microorganisms might be harmful to the Krathon. Biological warfare? Kim asked. More like biological defense. If we can make their stolen food sources inedible, we can slow them down. It was a desperate plan, but then again, everything about their mission was desperate. As they got closer to Thessia Prime, the crew could feel the tension building. They were about to face an enemy that had never been defeated, with weapons that had never been tested, using tactics that had never been tried. But they were also something the galaxy had never seen before: humans at war. On the final day of the journey, Captain Kim assembled the entire crew in the main hangar bay. 200 faces looked back at him, representing every nation on Earth. Tomorrow we arrive at Thessia Prime, he said. We're going to see things that will stay with us for the rest of our lives. We're going to fight an enemy that has killed billions of innocent people. We're going to be afraid, angry, and pushed to our limits. He paused, looking at each face in turn. But here's what I want you to remember. Every person on that planet who's still alive is alive because we're coming. Every Vellani child who survives will survive because 200 humans decided that genocide was not acceptable. Not on our watch. Not while we draw breath. The crew was silent, absorbing his words. The galaxy thinks we're crazy for trying this. They think we're going to die for nothing. Maybe they're right. But you know what? I'd rather die trying to save someone than live knowing I could have helped and didn't. A cheer started somewhere in the back of the crowd and spread forward. Soon the entire hangar was filled with the sound of 200 humans ready for war. The next morning, the Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Thessia Prime system. What they saw made even the most hardened veterans fall silent. The planet that had once been green and blue was now brown and scarred. Massive Krathon bioships hung in orbit like tumors against the stars. Smaller craft swarmed between them like antibodies in a diseased bloodstream. My God, whispered Dr. Park Minji. Captain Kim's voice was steady despite what he was feeling. All hands battle stations. Let's show these bugs what happens when they mess with people under human protection. The war for Thessia Prime was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans were called Deathworlders. The Krathon primary hive complex stretched across 50 square kilometers of what had once been the Vellani capital city. It was a nightmare made real. Massive organic towers that pulsed with alien life, connected by bridges of hardened secretions that gleamed wetly in the morning sun. Captain Kim Dae-ho studied the complex through his binoculars from a ridge 2 kilometers away. Even at this distance, he could see the constant stream of Krathon warriors moving between the structures, like blood cells through arteries. Intelligence estimates 2 million combatants in there, reported Song Yu-ri, consulting her tablet, plus an unknown number of queens, egg chambers, and processing facilities. And we have 200 people, added Colonel Jang Kyung-ho with dark humor. I've seen worse odds. When? Asked Dr. Park Minji. I haven't. But there's a first time for everything. The assault plan was pure human insanity. Instead of trying to fight 2 million Krathon warriors, they were going to use the aliens' greatest strength against them, their hive mind. The queens are the key, explained tactical specialist Oh Seung-woo, pointing to reconnaissance photos. Kill enough queens, and you disrupt their entire command structure. The drones become confused, uncoordinated. How many queens are we talking about? Kim asked. Best estimate? Around 50 spread throughout the complex. Each one controls roughly 40,000 warriors. The mathematics were sobering. 50 targets protected by 2 million guards, spread across an area the size of a major city, with 200 humans. Sir, said Specialist An So-jin. I've been working on something that might help. She produced a small device that looked like a mechanical spider. It's a delivery system for concentrated Earth viruses. gets inside their ventilation systems and spreads airborne pathogens. Will it kill them? Not directly, but it'll make them sick enough to slow their reaction times. Fever, nausea, disorientation. Think of it as chemical fog of war. Engineer Lim Dong-hyun had been modifying their remaining explosives. I've rigged shaped charges that can punch through their organic armor, but we'll need to get close and within 50 meters. That's practically hand-to-hand combat range, observed Marine Sergeant Bae Sun-ho. Exactly, said Colonel Jang with satisfaction. Where humans excel. The final piece of the plan came from Communications Officer Choi Hee-jin. I've been monitoring Krathen Communications. They use a hierarchical frequency system. Higher-ranked queens broadcast on different channels than lower ones. Meaning, if we can capture their communication equipment and broadcast false orders, we can turn their coordination against them. It was a plan that required perfect timing, incredible luck, and the kind of ruthless aggression that made other galactic species uncomfortable. In other words, it was perfectly suited to humans. They attacked at dawn when the Krathen were cycling their guard shifts. The assault began with sniper Seo Jun-ho taking out sentries from impossible distances with his kinetic rifle. Each shot was silent death, dropping guards before they could raise an alarm. Perimeter secure, he reported over the radio. You have a clear approach to the outer wall. The humans moved like ghosts through the early morning mist. Each team had a specific target: queen chambers, communication centers, egg nurseries. They carried weapons that would have been banned on most civilized worlds: fragmentation grenades, incendiary rounds, chemical weapons. Demolitions. Expert Bae Sun-ho reached the first queen chamber just as the sun cleared the horizon. Through a crack in the organic wall, he could see the massive creature inside, 3 times larger than her warrior offspring, surrounded by hundreds of eggs in various stages of development. He placed his shaped charge against the wall and activated the timer. 30 seconds to fireworks, he whispered into his radio. The explosion shattered the morning quiet. The queen died instantly, and with her death, 40,000 Krathen warriors suddenly found themselves without coordination or purpose. Across the complex, similar explosions marked the deaths of other queens. But the Krathen weren't helpless. They began responding with the efficiency that had conquered 47 worlds. "Contact!" shouted Marine Han Gitaik as Krathen warriors poured out of nearby structures. "Multiple hostiles, closing fast!" The battle became a running firefight. Through alien corridors, the humans used every dirty trick they knew, bouncing grenades around corners, using mirrors to spot enemies, even collapsing sections of the hive to block pursuit. Stealth specialist Ko Mi-young found herself trapped in a nursery chamber filled with Krathen eggs. Instead of trying to fight her way out, she did something that would have horrified galactic observers. She methodically destroyed every egg in the chamber. "This is for the Vellani children you murdered," she said quietly, placing explosive charges throughout the room. The blast eliminated a future generation of Krathen warriors and sent a psychological shock through the hive mind. For the first time in their history, the Krathen experienced something like grief. Dr. An So-jin's biological weapons proved devastatingly effective. Her virus-carrying devices spread throughout the hive's air circulation system, and within hours, Krathen warriors were stumbling through corridors, their coordination destroyed by fever and disorientation. "It's working," she reported to Captain Kim. "Their response times are down by 60%. Some of them are actually running into walls. But the most effective human weapon remained their unpredictability. Just when the Krathen thought they understood human tactics, the humans would change everything." Combat engineer Kwon Yeon-soo had been studying the hive structure and made a disturbing discovery. "Captain, this whole complex is built around a central support system. If we could destabilize it, the entire hive would collapse," Kim finished. "How many civilians, how many non-combatant Krathen would die?" "All of them. Queens, eggs, workers, everyone." Kim was quiet for a long moment. Then he remembered the recordings of Vellani children being processed into protein paste and his expression hardened. Do it. The assault on the central support chamber was the bloodiest fighting of the entire war. The Krathen threw everything they had at the humans, warriors, acid spitters, even suicide bombers that exploded in clouds of toxic spores. But humans had one advantage that no other galactic species possessed. They were willing to die for strangers. Marine. Oh Seung-woo held a corridor against 50 Krathen warriors while his teammates planted explosives. When his ammunition ran out, he drew a knife and continued fighting. When the knife broke, he used his fists. When reinforcements finally reached him, they found him buried under a pile of alien corpses, still breathing but barely. Did we get them? He whispered. Yeah, replied medic Yoon Jae-sung as he worked to stop the bleeding. We got them all. The final explosion was visible from orbit. The central support structure collapsed, taking the entire hive complex with it. 2 million Krathen warriors died in seconds as 50 square kilometers of alien architecture crashed down on itself. But it was the psychological effect that truly ended the war. The surviving Krathen throughout the system felt the death of their entire command structure through their hive mind. For a species that had never known defeat, the shock was paralyzing. Within hours, Krathen bioships began fleeing the system. Those that couldn't escape quickly enough were hunted down by the remaining human teams using captured Krathen weapons. Strategic Coordinator Oh Seung-woo, recovering in the medical bay, managed a weak smile when he heard the reports. How many did we lose? 43 killed, 92 wounded, Captain Kim replied. Out of 200. And the Krathen? Every last one of them. The number was staggering. In 3 weeks, 200 humans had completely eliminated a Krathen invasion force that numbered in the millions. It was a military achievement that galactic strategists would study for centuries. But for the humans aboard the Indomitable, it was just another job completed. Dr. Park Min-ji was treating wounded Marines when Communications Officer Choi Hye-jin brought news that made everyone pause. Captain, we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Other species are asking if the reports are true. Did we really eliminate an entire Krathen invasion force? Kim looked around the medical bay at his wounded crew. They were bandaged and exhausted, but their eyes held satisfaction. They had done something that everyone said was impossible. Tell them yes, he said, and tell them this. Earth stands ready to help any species threatened with extinction. We don't negotiate with monsters, and we don't leave anyone behind. The message went out across the galaxy, carried by quantum transmitters to every civilized world. Humanity's reputation was sealed. They were the Deathworlders, the species that answered distress calls, the ones who fought wars that couldn't be won. And deep in their underground shelters, the surviving Villani wept tears of joy and began the long process of reclaiming their world. The age of human protection had begun. The first battle in space lasted exactly 12 minutes. That was all the time Captain Kim Dae-ho needed to realize that fighting the Krathen fleet ship to ship was suicide. Evasive maneuvers, he shouted as energy beams lit up the space around them. The Indomitable twisted and rolled, its hull groaning under the stress. They've got us surrounded, Captain, reported Song Yuri from the tactical station. 53 bioships moving to intercept. We can't outrun them all. Kim watched the tactical display with growing frustration. The Krathen ships moved like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. When one attacked, the others adjusted their positions to cut off escape routes. It was like fighting a single massive enemy with 50 different bodies. Sir, we're taking heavy damage to the port shields, called out engineer Lim Dong-hyun. Kim made a decision that would have shocked every military academy in the galaxy. All stop. Take us down to the planet's surface. Sir? Song Yu-ri looked confused. That's suicide. We'll be trapped. No, Kim said, watching the Krathen ships pursue them into the atmosphere. We'll have something they don't expect. Ground to fight on. The Indomitable crashed through Thessia Prime's clouds with half the Krathen fleet on their tail. Kim aimed for a mountainous region where the surviving Villani had reported underground shelters. Brace for impact, he yelled. The ship hit the ground, hard, carving a furrow through what had once been a forest. Emergency systems screamed warnings as the hull cracked and twisted, but they were alive, and more importantly, They were where Kim wanted them. Damage report, he ordered. We're not flying anywhere soon, Tae-woo replied, but life support is stable and the weapons are still online. Good enough. Colonel Jang, deploy your Marines. It's time to take this fight to the enemy. What happened? Next became the stuff of legend in galactic military circles. The humans did something no civilization had ever attempted. They deliberately went to ground against the Krathen. Colonel Jang Kyung-ho led his troops out of the crashed ship and immediately began implementing tactics that would have horrified any civilized species. They scattered into small teams, each with a specific mission, but instead of trying to fight the Krathen army directly, they focused on something else entirely. Remember, Jang told his squad leaders over the radio, "We're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to break their machine, find the breeding pools, destroy their supply lines, make them afraid." Sergeant Bae Sun-ho's demolitions team struck first. They infiltrated a Krathen processing center where stolen biomass was being converted into nutrients. Instead of attacking the guards, they planted explosives in the machinery. 30 seconds, Bae whispered into his radio. The explosion lit up the night sky, but more importantly, it destroyed 3 days' worth of processed food and contaminated the rest with toxic chemicals from the burning machinery. Across the planet, other teams were implementing similar tactics. Specialist Nam Jin-woo had studied the Krathen communication system and discovered something interesting. They used pheromone signals to coordinate their activities. They're like ants, he explained to his team as they set up strange devices around a Krathen staging area. Disrupt their chemical signals and they get confused. The devices broadcast synthetic pheromones that mimicked Krathen distress calls. Within hours, the area was chaos as thousands of Krathen warriors responded to false emergency signals. Dr. Park Min-ji's biological warfare program proved even more effective than anyone had hoped. Working with teams on the ground, she introduced Earth bacteria into Krathen food supplies. The results were devastating. Their digestive systems can't handle our microorganisms, she reported to Captain Kim. The bacteria multiply in their stomachs and make them sick. Not sick enough to kill them quickly, but sick enough to slow them down. But the most shocking human tactic was something that no galactic species could have conceived. They made the Krathen afraid. Sniper Seo Junho had positioned himself in the ruins of a Villani city with a rifle that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. His first target was a Krathen sub-queen, one of the mid-level commanders that coordinated groups of drones. The bullet punched through her head with a sound like breaking glass. Every Krathen in a kilometer radius felt her death through their shared consciousness. "One down," Junho whispered into his radio, moving to next position. What followed was a campaign of terror unlike anything in galactic history. The humans didn't just kill Krathen, they made examples of them. Bodies were left arranged in patterns that suggested intelligence and malice. Supply convoys disappeared. Without a trace, their cargo found days later booby-trapped with explosives. The psychological effect was immediate. For the first time in their species' history, the Krathen began experiencing something like fear. Combat medic Yoon Jae-sung was treating wounded Marines when he witnessed something that made him laugh despite the circumstances. A group of Krathen drones had encountered one of Nam Jin-woo's pheromone traps and were running in circles, following chemical signals that led nowhere. "They're like dogs chasing their own tails," he told his patient, a Marine who'd taken shrapnel to the leg. "Just dumber," the Marine replied with a pained grin. The humans' most effective weapon, however, was their adaptability. Unlike every other species in the galaxy which specialized in one type of warfare, humans constantly changed their tactics. Engineer Ko Mi-young had studied Krathen patrol patterns and developed a simple but effective trap. She would leave crates of supplies in areas the Krathen were known to patrol. When they investigated, the crates exploded. After losing several patrols to these traps, the Krathen adapted. They began sending scouts to examine suspicious objects. Before approaching them, So Mi-young adapted too. She started making some crates harmless, conditioning the Krathen to expect them to be safe. Then, when their guard was down, she would detonate one in the middle of a patrol. "The key," she explained to her team, "is to never let them get comfortable. Every time they think they understand us, we change the game." This philosophy extended to every aspect of the human campaign. When the Krathen learned to avoid the original pheromone traps, Nam Jin Woo developed new ones. When they adapted to explosive booby traps, the humans switched to biological warfare. When they found ways to counter the bacteria, Dr. Park introduced viruses. Within 2 weeks of landing on Thessia Prime, the humans had accomplished something that galactic military experts had declared impossible. They had put the Krathen on the defensive. "Sir," reported Song Yu-ri during a briefing in the crashed ship's makeshift command center, "Krathen casualties are approaching 30%. More importantly, their reproduction rate has dropped by 60%. Captain Kim studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Red dots showed Krathen positions, but many of them were blinking, indicating units that had gone silent or were operating with reduced effectiveness. What about our losses? Surprisingly light. 18 killed, 43 wounded. We've lost more people to industrial accidents back on Earth. The reason for their low casualties was simple. The humans refused to fight fair. They struck from ambush, used superior technology against surprised enemies, and retreated before the Krathen could respond effectively. But perhaps most importantly, they had given the surviving Villani something they had lost. Hope. Deep in underground shelters, the flower-like beings watched human tactical reports with amazement. Silas the Lightbringer spoke for all of them when she said, "They are not large, these humans, they are not strong compared to the Devourers, but they fight like... She searched for a word in her language and couldn't find one. The Villani had no concept that matched human warfare. "They fight like death itself," she finally said. Above ground, the tide of battle was turning. For the first time since the invasion began, Krathen forces were retreating from areas they had already conquered. Their perfect coordination was breaking, down as communication systems failed and commanders died. But the humans weren't content with merely driving them back. They wanted something more complete. "Colonel," Captain Kim said during their evening briefing, "what's our next move?" Jung Kyung-ho smiled, and it was the expression of a predator that had caught the scent of wounded prey. "We've disrupted their operations and killed their mid-level commanders. Now we go for the throat. It's time to assault the primary hive complex." Tankyo. Room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The primary hive was where the Krathen queens lived, where millions of eggs were laid daily, where the invasion force maintained its command structure. It was also defended by the largest concentration of Krathen warriors on the planet. "That's suicide," someone whispered. "No," Kim replied, looking around the room at the faces of his crew. "That's victory. We came here to save the Villani. Half measures won't do it. We have to end this completely." He stood up, his decision made. "Send word to all teams, tomorrow we finish this war." Outside, the alien night was filled with the sounds of a battle unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Humans hunting monsters in the dark and winning. 3 months after the battle, Thessia Prime was green again. Captain Kim Dae-ho walked through what had once been the Krathen primary hive complex. Now it was a construction site where Villani engineers worked alongside human crews to build something new. The organic towers had been torn down and replaced with structures that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Part building, part living tree. "It's beautiful," said Dr. Park Minji, joining him on the observation platform. She had stayed on Thessia Prime to help coordinate the restoration effort. "They're fast workers," Kim agreed, watching Villani technicians guide the growth of a new government center. The building looked like crystal flowers blooming in fast forward. The Villani had proven to be remarkable partners in rebuilding their world. Their knowledge of biological systems allowed them to restore damaged ecosystems in weeks rather than decades. Combined with human engineering expertise, they were creating something that had never existed before. A world designed by 2 completely different species working together. "Captain," called Communications Officer Choi Hee-jin from her station. "You need to hear this." Kim walked over to the communication console where dozens of messages were queued for his attention. The first one made him pause. "This is Speaker Tolan of the Rigel colony," the message began. "We are under attack by the Devourers of Light. Our defenses are failing. We have heard of your victory at Thessia Prime. Please, can you help us? The second message was similar. Emergency transmission from New Geneva Station. We are besieged by the Iron Swarm. Our population is 3 million. We don't have long. Can Earth send the Deathworlders and another? The Crystal Singers of Altair 7th are dying. The Void Hunters have found us. We offer everything we have in exchange for protection. Kim scrolled through the list with growing amazement. 43 distress calls from across the galaxy, all asking for the same thing: human intervention. Word travels fast out here, observed Colonel Jang Kyung-ho, who had been inspecting the Marine barracks. Sir, said Hyojin, there's more. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss something called the human question. The emergency session took place on Centauri Prime, the capital world of the galactic government. Captain Kim found himself standing before representatives of 200 species, all staring at him with mixtures of fear, respect, and fascination. The Altarian delegate spoke first. Captain Kim, your species' actions at Thessia Prime have caused significant concern among the civilized worlds. Concern? Kim asked. We saved 2 billion innocent lives by committing acts of violence that most species would consider extreme. A murmur ran through the assembly. On the viewing screens around the chamber, footage played from the battle. Humans using chemical weapons, destroying enemy nurseries, employing tactics that galactic warfare conventions had banned for centuries. The Krathen Horde had conquered 47 worlds, Kim replied calmly. They had killed trillions of beings. Conventional tactics had failed every time. We used the methods that worked. The Centauri representative leaned forward. And therein lies the problem. Your species seems to have no limits when it comes to warfare. You fight not just to win, but to completely destroy your enemies. Is that wrong? Kim asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Finally, a new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. No, said Speaker Silas the Lightbringer, now representing the Villani people. It is not wrong. The flower-like being glided to the center of the chamber, her translucent form glowing with inner light. Before the humans came, we begged for help. We offered everything we had to anyone who would save us. You all found excuses to turn away. Her voice carried harmonics that the translation systems rendered as profound sadness. The humans asked for nothing. They came because we needed help. They risked everything to save strangers they had never met. She turned to face Captain Kim. My people call them the answered prayer, because when death came for us, they came for death. The Rigelian delegate stood up. With respect to the Villani, the humans' methods were barbaric. They used biological weapons, targeted non-combatants, showed no mercy. The Krathen showed no mercy to our children, Silas interrupted. They processed 2 billion of my people into food. The humans did what was necessary to stop them. Ambassador Chen Wei, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, rose from her seat. The question before us is simple, she said in clear, galactic standard. Do we want a galaxy where species like the Krathen can commit genocide without consequences? Or do we want someone willing to stop them? But at what cost? Asked the Vegan delegate. Your species terrifies half the galaxy. You fight wars of extermination. You show no restraint. Captain Kim stepped forward. You're right. We don't show restraint when faced with genocide. We don't negotiate with species that eat children. We don't believe in proportional responses to mass murder. His voice carried the authority of someone who had seen the worst the galaxy could offer. But here's what you're missing. We only fight when others can't or won't. We only kill those who won't stop killing innocents. And we only destroy those who would destroy everything. He gestured to the viewing screens, which now showed images of Thessia Prime's restoration. Look at that world now. It's more beautiful than it ever was. The Villani are thriving. They're already sharing their agricultural knowledge with a dozen species. That's what we fought for. The Altarian delegate wasn't satisfied. What happens when you decide that a species is too dangerous to exist? What happens when you turn those weapons on us? Kim's answer was immediate. Then you'll know you deserved it. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. But before anyone could respond, Ambassador Chen stood again. The captain speaks bluntly, but he speaks truth. Humanity has no interest in conquest or dominance. We don't want your worlds, your resources, or your submission. We want one thing: for innocent people to be safe. She activated a holographic display showing the 43 distress calls. Look at this list. Peaceful species under attack by predators. Colonies being overrun by raiders. Entire civilizations facing extinction. Where are your fleets? Where are your rescue missions? The chamber fell silent. I'll tell you where they are. They're protecting your core worlds, your trade routes, your important citizens. Meanwhile, the weak and defenseless are left to die alone. Chen's voice grew stronger. But they're not alone anymore. Humanity will answer their calls. We'll fight their battles. We'll face the monsters that you're too civilized to confront. The Centauri representative tried to regain control. This is not how galactic civilization works. We have laws, procedures, diplomatic protocols. Your protocols don't stop species from being eaten alive, Kim interrupted. Your laws don't save children from becoming protein paste. Your civilization only works for those strong enough to protect themselves. He looked around the chamber at faces representing hundreds of worlds. We're offering you something new. Protection without cost. Safety without submission. All we ask in return is that you don't stand in our way when evil shows its face. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The galaxy's governments couldn't officially endorse human methods, but they also couldn't argue with human results. In the end, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one and everyone simultaneously. Humanity would be granted special status as protected species advocates. Any species facing extinction could officially request human intervention, bypassing normal diplomatic channels. It was a polite way of saying, we don't approve of how you do things, but we're glad someone's willing to do them. 6 months later, Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable II, the second ship in humanity's rapidly expanding deep space fleet. Around them, 5 more human warships prepared for hyperspace jump. Destination confirmed, reported Navigation Officer Park Soo-young. The Keth Imperium has surrounded the Peaceful Gardens colony. Estimated time to massacre 72 hours. Any word from the galactic powers? Kim asked. The usual, replied Communications Officer Choi Hye-jin. Thoughts and prayers, diplomatic protests, strongly worded letters. Kim nodded. It was exactly what he'd expected. All ships, this is Captain Kim. The call for help was clear. Aid is needed. We answer as we always have, as we always will. The small human fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 2,000 volunteers toward another impossible battle against another unbeatable enemy. In the depths of space behind them, other messages were already coming in. Distress calls from across the galaxy, all asking for the same thing that the Villani had asked for. Send the Deathworlders, and humanity, as always, would answer, because someone had to. Back on Thessia Prime, in a garden that grew where a hive of monsters once stood, a Villani child asked her teacher about the strange beings who had saved their world. Why did they come for us, the child asked. They didn't know us, we had nothing to give them. Silas the Lightbringer considered the question carefully. Because, she said finally, that is what good people do. They help those who cannot help themselves, not because they expect reward, but because it is right. Will they come again if we need them? Silas looked up at the stars, where human ships were already answering new calls for help, fighting new battles.